Today we're actually making stuff. I'm gonna throw some stuff on the wheel, do some hand building, but first things first, I have to clean up the huge mess from last week. It did take a couple hours to get it fully clean, but it's super, super important to keep the studio clean, at least while you're working, just because you don't want to contaminate the clay with other materials, especially plaster. Plaster breaks off into these tiny little specks, and its main form is powder anyway. So even just getting the powder into your clay can be a huge issue because it will cause explosions in the kiln. That is because clay shrinks and expands and plaster does not. So you can imagine how that would be an issue in the kiln when it's shrinking. Here's everything pretty clean, wiped everything down, made sure there's no more plaster particles anywhere because it was everywhere. And then I'll do a quick sweep. Usually I don't sweep just because you don't want to get clay particles in the air. It's really, really bad to breathe in. And there's like a disease that's just for us ceramic artists out there. And it's due to breathing in those particles. But enjoy the ASMR. I've witnessed the fears. This plaster bat will be the death of me. I believe this is a failed project once again, but I haven't destroyed it yet because I want to see what happens. Maybe it'll dry in a month or so. We'll see. I let these slabs dry out for about a week so that I could actually get to building the essential oil burner. They have to get to, this is more of a wet leather hard stage, but leather hard means that the clay is still workable and movable, but it's got some strength to it because it's dried out a bit. I freaking love this tool. I hadn't used it much before, like I think a week before I made this essential oil burner, but it is now my new favorite tool. I did buy it specifically for hand building, but before super recently, I had not been very into hand building. I'd done a few sculptural pieces and a few just fun whatever pieces with hand building and pinching, but haven't really done much slab work, and I'm discovering now that I love it. I used to do a lot of wheel throwing because I liked how technical it was, but I'm starting to realize that I really love how creative and free you can be with hand building, because as long as you have your basic understanding of ceramics and clay, hand building is super forgiving, whereas throwing is not super forgiving. And it's a lot easier to be super hard on yourself with wheel throwing because it's all about perfection. At least it can be. Since this was my first time doing a functional hand building piece, it was a big learning opportunity. If I were to make this essential oil burner again, I would definitely do it a lot different, but I think that it just looks so fun and super organic, and you can tell that I made it with my hands, which is what I love about ceramics. But I still would do it differently. Different as in work smarter, not harder. I think that I really drew out this process longer than I needed to, just because of the method that I used. You can see I've slipped and scored everything like I'm supposed to, unlike the last video. I googled a diagram of how slipping and scoring works just so I could show you guys. Couldn't find one, but I kept seeing this term used a lot, which was, I guess it was more of an acronym. It was SSSS, which was score, slip, smush, and smooth. I don't think the third one was smush, but it was something like that. And that's exactly correct. You score each side, slip each side, and then you kind of create like a suction. The third S should be suction, but I don't make the rules. But it creates a suction so that they're joined, and then when you smooth it out, it like really solidifies the bonds between them to make them super strong. This is another tool I've been using a lot recently that I've also had for a while, but is kind of specifically for hand building, or you get the most use out of it in hand building. And I freaking love this thing. I feel like I've been using it a lot recently. Don't know what it's called. Sorry, but that's what it looks like. It's like a super dull knife or like a letter opener. Here I'm using the sponge as a measurement to know how much clay to cut for the oil part of the essential oil burner. Just cutting around the sponge so I can join that to the top of what I have built already. And then here I am again, just scoring and slipping everything and then smushing them together to be one. I also have these little rubber tools for hand building. Actually, I think they're for anything, but I've only found use for them in hand building. Look at that. So cute. I end up smoothing it out once it's a little bit more dry with a wet sponge, but this is kind of what it looks like for now, while I let it dry a little bit more. Now it's time to throw. This wackiness that I'm doing right here is just setting up my wheel to put my bat on. I think it's a particle board bat. I don't know that there is a specific name for this type of bat, but it's a bat system. So you can kind of see, you'll see when I'm done with this piece, but it's this little square that comes out so that you don't have to get any warping from taking your piece off of the wheel while it's wet. You can just do that after it's dried off a little bit and just replace the square that comes out. You'll see. What I didn't show, because it's so incredibly boring to people who don't do ceramics, but a large part of throwing, and probably the most time-consuming part of throwing, is centering the clay. It's very important because if the clay isn't smooth and centered and all kind of like primed going in the same direction, you'll end up throwing a super wobbly piece, which is kind of what happened to me anyway, but not because of centering. My piece ended up wobbly because, well, one, I haven't thrown in a while because I've been hand building, but also I'm still getting used to this bat system. It's pretty new to me. I'm used to just throwing right on the wheel itself. So it's hard. You can see the wheel is kind of wobbly itself, and so that's what's kind of throwing everything off, but that's okay. I'm not particularly worried about it, just because I like to just throw and move on. I've also learned after filming this is that I pull my walls up too high, and that contributes to wobbliness because the walls are uneven. This piece that I'm making right here is actually so embarrassing, but I think it's important to show because throwing vase shapes like this are very difficult and technical. You can't just throw and move on like I like to do. And you can see the tops getting super uneven and wobbly, but these types of things are important. You can't just not do something because it's difficult, okay? You have to just do it, and if it looks bad, you're literally fine. My ceramics professor used to tell us that we couldn't get too attached to any of the pieces that we make, even if we spend a lot of time on it and it's really important or whatever, because clay is not very forgiving. I know that I said that hand building is more forgiving, but clay is super unforgiving. You can do everything right, and have one thing go not exactly perfect, and it can ruin your piece. All the way up until your last firing, something can go wrong. So even if it's perfectly centered and you open it perfect and you pull the walls up perfect, if you didn't compress the floor of your piece enough, you'll get a crack when it dries or even when it goes into the kiln. Or if you do all of the above correct, but then you don't let it get perfectly bone dry, it'll crack. Here's part 487 of me cleaning, because there's always something that needs to be cleaned when working with clay. I let everything dry out for a couple days, and this is what I came back to. I'm taking everything off of their bats. Yep, it's too thin. So do something with it. This piece ended up not getting dry enough by the end of this video for me to do anything with, so I don't actually revisit that piece again. But I will next week, I'm sure. And here I am about to use those two tools again. Because I accidentally threw the floor way too thin, I just decided to use this hand building technique. And this is actually the reason why I bought this tool, is because there's people who do this type of slab hand building where they make all these rectangular slabs, and they'll use this tool to make curved lines, and they'll end up with a teapot or something super difficult and technical just by slab and doing this tapping motion. It's super cool and interesting. I don't know how to do it, but I figured this was a perfect use for this tool, and it's a different bottom than I've made before. I usually like to go for very angular lines when I'm throwing and trimming, but in lieu of hand building and organic styles, I decided to use this tool and give it a beveled edge. And so I'm just stamping my little sit stamp, which is just about my favorite part. I decided to make a handle for this mug, which is something that I literally never ever do. I do not make handles. I hate making handles. I feel like I'm pretty bad at making handles, but I had this epiphany a few weeks ago, and I was in the middle of dinner out with my boyfriend, and I had to pull out my notes app and draw this idea that I had for a handle, which is just so silly because I hate handles. But this is something that I've never seen before, so somebody might have thought of this before and done it already, but I personally haven't seen it before, where the handle is on a bias. Look at that. That was my notes app drawing. So here I am executing it, and it went way better than expected. And because this cup kind of didn't exactly go how I wanted, and I had already Frankensteined it to look the way that it had, I was like, fuck it, I'll put this handle on it, because I didn't want to put a shitty handle on something that I was really proud of. But it all paid off in the end, because I ended up loving this mug. I thought this was like a fun, like funny way to hold the mug, and it was the purpose of putting it on an angle, because I hate holding a mug like by the handle like it's intended to. I think it's so dumb. I love to hold the warm ceramic in my hand. That's what's really fun about ceramics, functional ceramics, specifically mugs and stuff like that. I just love to touch the clay. I just love to touch the finished piece while using it in that capacity. This cup I made was a silly, small little guy. It was the third piece that I threw in this video, and it was super thin, and it ended up totally fine. I've been trying to throw thinner and thinner, but I thought it would make a really cute cocktail glass. I realized after the fact that I'm pretty sure tiles are supposed to have grooves in the back for the purpose of gripping into the grout or whatever is used for tiles. So I just took my leather hard tiles and went on the backs of all of them and carved these lines. I thought it was going to be way easier. Not that it was hard, but just look at those lines. They're so wobbly and like messy. I was really trying. I thought they were going to be perfect. New chessboard. Yeah, I finally got around to it. This chessboard is chessboard 3.0. It ended up being beautiful and incredible, and of course I finished it and didn't get a single picture or video of the finished chessboard, but you'll see it soon enough. Just know that it's perfect, and I love it and cherish it. This is a new piece I'm starting, so this is all you're really going to see of it. This is a method of hand building where you take a mound of clay, sculpt whatever you're going to sculpt, and then let it dry out a little bit and then hollow it out after the fact instead of doing coils or slab building. I took my own type of approach to this, where I started with what I want to end up being the base of this piece, and just getting the base started and hollowed out, and then I'll be able to build off of that with coils. So I'm kind of putting the two methods together to start something new. And it's really just because I hate making coils. They're never perfectly round, and I'm a perfectionist, so it bothers me. Here's everything I finished today. Everything's so cute. Here's my silly little mug with my silly little soot stamp. I freaking love it. cannot wait to glaze this guy. My little cocktail cup. I think it's so cute. It's not exactly what I thought it was going to turn out to be, but I'm, again, so excited to glaze it. And my little essential oil burner. So cute. You guys, it's so cute. And these are tiny little sake cups that I've had sitting around, or they could be shot glasses. We'll see how small they are when they're finished, but so cute. Okay, bye.